Imagine waking up to find your dream home under siege, your sanctuary violated by those meant to protect it. I stood on my front lawn, my voice cracking with disbelief as water surged like a geyser from the severed pipe, soaking the grass in a relentless flood. 3 men in HOA uniforms stood watching, their sneers cutting deeper than the icy spray, while a woman with jet black hair in a tailored Prada suit stepped forward, her voice as cold as a winter storm. In 3 days, this house will no longer be yours. My heart thundered in my chest. This wasn't a mistake. This was a calculated strike to steal everything my family had built. Welcome to a tale of betrayal, resilience, and the unyielding fight for justice that'll leave you wondering. Would you stand and fight or flee for safety? I'm Nathan Carter, and this nightmare unfolded when my family, my wife, Commander Elise Harper of the U.S. Navy, and our 10-year-old son, Liam, finally settled in what we believed was our forever home in Pineview Meadows, a picturesque neighborhood with flawless lawns and homes that seemed to glow under the morning sun. But beneath its polished surface, a sinister plot was brewing. Elise had just been deployed, commanding a destroyer with 400 sailors, when the HOA struck without warning. Picture yourself in my shoes, the ground beneath you soaked, facing a 72-hour ultimatum to abandon your home. What would you do? Option 1. Fight back with every ounce of strength, risking it all. Option 2. Pack up and run, hoping to escape the storm. Drop your choice, 1 or 2, in the comments below, and let's see what you do. While you're at it, please hit that subscribe button for daily narrated stories. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support means the world to us. The trouble began 3 months after we moved into Pineview Meadows, a community we'd chosen for its promise of stability after years of military relocations that had uprooted us time and again, following Elise's naval career across the globe. As a freelance journalist, I often worked from home, cherishing the quiet rhythm of our new life. Mornings sipping coffee on the porch, the steam rising in lazy curls as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold. Afternoons helping Liam with his science projects, his laughter echoing through the house as we built a model volcano that erupted with baking soda and vinegar. And evenings tending to the garden Elise had planted with her favorite roses, their delicate scent a constant reminder of her, even when she was thousands of miles away. That Tuesday morning, I was in my office, sunlight streaming through the window, casting golden patches on the hardwood floor as I drafted an article about local environmental policies, my fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the keyboard. A sharp, insistent knock shattered the calm, reverberating through the house like a gunshot, my stomach twisting with an unexplainable dread as I crossed the floor to the front door, each step heavier than the last, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the stillness. At the door stood 3 figures, 2 burly men who looked like they'd stepped out of a bodyguard agency, their arms crossed, faces set in stone, their broad shoulders blocking out the sunlight, and a wiry man in an ill-fitting suit named Marcus Trent, the HOA property manager. His eyes were cold, devoid of warmth, a predator sizing up his prey, as he handed me a document. The paper crisp and official-looking, stamped with the Pineview Meadows HOA seal, its edges sharp against my fingers. You have 72 hours to vacate for severe violations of HOA rules, he said, his smirk sending a chill down my spine that felt like ice water in my veins, his voice dripping with a smug satisfaction that made my skin crawl. My pulse raced, my mind struggling to process the words, a fog of disbelief clouding my thoughts. This has to be a mistake, I stammered, my voice trembling with a mix of confusion and rising panic, the document shaking slightly in my hands. Marcus's grin widened, his tone mocking, almost gleeful. It's terminal. The board has decided. I demanded to see the specific violations, my journalist's instinct kicking in despite the fear clawing at my chest, a tight knot forming in my throat as I tried to steady my breathing. Marcus waved a hand dismissively, muttering vague accusations about aesthetic standards and misuse of property, his words hollow, lacking substance, but offered no concrete details, his refusal to engage only fueling my suspicion. The document bore the signature of Vivian Sterling, the HOA president, her name written in sharp, angular script that seemed to slice through the page, but listed no specifics, just a cold, bureaucratic demand to leave, the words printed in stark black ink that seemed to mock my disbelief. When I pushed for clarity, my voice rising with desperation, the two larger men stepped closer, their presence a silent threat that made the air feel heavier, their shadows looming over me like a storm cloud. "You can make this easy or hard," Marcus warned, his words laced with a sinister edge, his eyes glinting with a dangerous promise. "But if you're not out in 72 hours, we'll get the authorities involved." My hand shook as I clutched the document, the weight of their threat pressing down on me like a physical force, my heart hammering against my ribcage. Something was terribly wrong, and I knew I had to act fast. Slipping my phone from my pocket, I discreetly hit record, the device hidden in my palm, my thumb trembling as I pressed the button, recalling Elise's advice to always document confrontations, a lesson from her days as a civil attorney before the Navy, her voice echoing in my mind like a lifeline. As they turned to leave, their boots crunching on the gravel path, a sound that grated against my nerves, I stood frozen on the porch, the sound of the gushing water a relentless reminder of their sabotage, a roaring cascade that drowned out the birdsong that usually filled the morning air. The roses Elise had so carefully tended were now drowning, their vibrant red petals drooping under the flood, the water pooling around their roots like a cruel mockery of the care we'd poured into this home. I forced myself to move, my legs heavy as if wading through molasses, dialing Elise on her secure line as I paced the lawn, the grass slick beneath my shoes, my socks soaking through with each step. Despite being halfway across the globe, her voice cut through the chaos, steady and tactical, a lifeline in the storm that threatened to sweep me away. "Don't sign anything," she ordered, her tone a mix of steel and warmth that grounded me, her commander's authority tempered by the softness she reserved for family. "Photograph the property from every angle, send me the video, and call Rachel Bennett. She's a sharp attorney I worked with before the Navy. We need to build a case." Before hanging up, her voice softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through the commander's facade, a crack in her armor that made my chest ache. "We're not losing our home, Nathan. They've targeted the wrong family." Her words were a balm to my frayed nerves, a flicker of hope in the darkness, but dread still gnawed at my stomach, heavy and cold, as I snapped photos of our pristine yard, the roses a painful reminder of the life we'd built here, their beauty now marred by the chaos around them. I spent the next hour documenting every inch of our property, the shutter of my camera clicking rhythmically as I captured the freshly painted siding, its pale blue surface gleaming in the sunlight, the neatly trimmed hedges that lined our walkway, their leaves of vibrant green, and the spotless driveway, free of even a single oil stain. There wasn't a single violation in sight. Our home was a model of compliance, a testament to the care we'd poured into it, every detail a reflection of our dream to finally put down roots. As I worked, my neighbor, Ethan Brooks, a quiet graphic designer who worked from home, approached cautiously, his eyes darting nervously down the street, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his hoodie. He was a wiry man in his late 30s, with a perpetually furrowed brow that deepened as he spoke, his voice barely audible over the sound of the water. "I saw them at your door," he whispered, his breath visible in the cool morning air, his gaze flickering to the geyser still erupting from our lawn. "The HOA enforcers. You're not the first, Nathan. The Parkers down the street and the Lindsays before them. They were forced out too. The Parkers had their water shut off when they resisted, and their gate was padlocked, trapping them inside until they gave in. Be careful. They don't just make threats." His words sent a shiver through me, the reality of our situation sinking in deeper, a cold weight settling in my chest. I thanked him, my voice tight, barely managing a nod, and watched as he hurried back to his house, his shoulders hunched as if expecting to be watched, his footsteps quick and uneven on the pavement. That night, sleep evaded me, my mind racing with Ethan's warning and the images of those other families, driven from their homes under the cover of night, their lives upended by the same forces now targeting us. I sat at my desk, the glow of my laptop casting harsh shadows across the room, the blue light stinging my tired eyes as I dove into online research, my fingers flying over the keyboard in a frantic search for answers. I uncovered whispers about Vivian Sterling, a former corporate lawyer who'd seized control of the HOA 5 years ago after moving to Pineview Meadows, her rise to power swift and unchallenged. Community forums were filled with hushed complaints about her ruthless tactics. Fines for minor infractions like a slightly faded mailbox or a single weed in a lawn, sudden evictions with no prior notice, and an iron grip on the neighborhood's governance that left residents living in fear. But nothing explained why we'd been targeted so aggressively. Our home marked for destruction without a single prior notice, the suddenness of the attack a mystery that gnawed at me. The more I read, the more my anger grew, a simmering heat that pushed back against the fear threatening to overwhelm me, my hands clenching in a fist as I scrolled through post after post of grievances. I delved deeper, pulling up public records and old news articles, piecing together Vivian's history like a puzzle. She'd been a high-powered attorney in the city before retiring to Pineview Meadows, her career marked by aggressive litigation and a reputation for winning at any cost. There were hints of past scandals, lawsuits from former clients alleging unethical practices, though nothing had stuck, her connections apparently shielding her from consequences. One article mentioned her involvement in a failed real estate venture a decade ago, a project that had left investors bankrupt while Vivian walked away unscathed, her name tied to whispers of fraud but never proven. The forums painted a picture of a woman who thrived on control, her HOA leadership a new arena for her to flex her power, her tactics honed over years of bending rules to her advantage. I bookmarked every relevant post, my notes growing into a sprawling document, each new piece of information fueling my determination to fight back. The next morning, determined to find answers, I visited Clara Evans, a retired librarian who'd lived in Pineview Meadows for decades, her presence a quiet constant in the neighborhood. Her home at the end of our street was a quaint oasis, its wraparound porch adorned with hanging flower baskets that swayed gently in the breeze, their bright blooms a stark contrast to the tension gripping the rest of the community. Her garden, a vibrant patchwork of daisies and lavender, somehow escaped the HOA's strict landscaping rules, a mystery that had always intrigued me, a small act of defiance in a neighborhood ruled by fear. Clara greeted me with a warm smile, her silver hair pulled into a neat bun, her eyes sharp and knowing despite her age, and invited me in for tea, the scent of chamomile filling her cozy kitchen, the warmth of the room a comforting contrast to the chill outside. As I explained the situation, my voice low and urgent, her sharp eyes studied me, a knowing glint in their depths, her expression one of quiet understanding. "I knew they'd come for your house eventually," she said, her voice steady, her hands steady as she poured the tea, the steam rising in delicate wisps. She pulled out a worn leather folder, revealing maps of the neighborhood and old newspaper clippings yellowed with time, their edges curling from years of careful preservation. "Your lot borders the community greenbelt," she explained, tracing a finger along the boundary line, her touch gentle but precise. "Vivian's been scheming to sell that land to a developer, and your property, along with a few others, is key for access roads. This isn't about rules, Nathan. It's about greed, pure and simple." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, the pieces of the puzzle snapping into place with a sickening clarity, my breath catching in my throat as the full scope of the conspiracy came into focus. This wasn't a random attack. It was a calculated move to clear the way for a multi-million-dollar development deal. Our home a mere obstacle in Vivian's path to profit. Clara's evidence was meticulous. Maps marked with proposed access roads, articles about past HOA battles over the Greenbelt, and even a grainy photo of Vivian meeting with a man in a suit at a local cafe, their expressions serious, their body language secretive. She'd been collecting this information for years, her quiet resistance a testament to her resolve, her determination a quiet fire that inspired me. I thanked her, my mind reeling, my hands trembling slightly as I clutched the folder she handed me, its weight a tangible reminder of the fight ahead. As I stepped onto her porch, the morning air crisp against my skin, I spotted a sleek black SUV idling near my home, its tinted windows reflecting the sunlight like a dark mirror. A poised woman with silver-streaked hair, later identified as Sylvia Monroe, the HOA vice president, watched my house with blatant intent, her gaze predatory, her presence a silent threat. When she saw me staring, she sped off, her tires squealing against the pavement, the sound echoing down the quiet street, a jarring note in the morning calm. My heart raced as I hurried home, my journalist instincts driving me to dig deeper, my resolve hardening with each step. That afternoon, I sat at my desk, the hum of my laptop a constant companion as I delved into Sylvia's background, my fingers moving swiftly over the keyboard as I chased every lead. What I found only deepened my suspicion. She was a luxury real estate agent with a reputation for cutthroat deals, her name synonymous with high-stakes transactions in the city's most exclusive neighborhoods. More damningly, she was the aunt of the CEO of Monroe Properties, the developer rumored to be eyeing our greenbelt, a family connection that tied her directly to the scheme. The connection was too blatant to ignore, a web of corruption stretching from the HOA to the highest echelons of local real estate, a tangled network of greed and power. I also uncovered a buried HOA bylaw, tucked away in an archived document online, requiring a public board vote for any eviction. A rule Vivian had blatantly ignored, her signature on the eviction notice a clear violation of the community's own governance. My research took a darker turn as I discovered Vivian's hefty donations to local politicians, her name appearing on campaign finance reports alongside promises of community development, her contributions a clear attempt to buy influence. The donations explained her unchecked power, her apparent immunity from oversight, and the confidence with which she operated, her connections a shield against accountability. Digging further, I spent hours combing through property records, my eyes burning from the strain of staring at the screen, my coffee growing cold beside me as I traced the history of Pineview Meadows. A pattern emerged, chilling in its precision. Over the past 4 years, homes in strategic locations, like ours, have been sold below market value after their owners were mysteriously pressured to leave, their lives upended by sudden evictions and relentless harassment. These properties were snapped up by various LLCs, their names innocuous: Pineview Holdings, Meadowview Partners. But with some cross-referencing, I traced their ownership back to shell companies linked to Sylvia's nephew at Monroe Properties. The paper trail a labyrinth of deceit. This was bigger than just our house. It was a systematic scheme to reshape the entire neighborhood for profit, a land grab disguised as HOA enforcement, a betrayal of the community's trust that made my blood boil. My hands trembled as I printed my findings. The printers were a stark contrast to the silence of the house, the pages piling up like a battle plan. I secured the documents in a safe, the metal door clicking shut with a finality that mirrored my resolve, and uploaded backups to a secure cloud, whispering a silent promise to Elise that I'd protect our home, my voice barely audible in the empty room. As evening fell, the sky a bruised shade of purple, the air heavy with the scent of impending rain, I noticed an unmarked car parked across from our house, its occupant a shadowy figure watching us through the dim streetlights. The glow of a cigarette tipped the only sign of life inside. The sight sent a jolt of adrenaline through me, my breath catching in my throat, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. Then my email pinged, an anonymous message that made my blood run cold. Sell your house now if you know what's good for you. This place isn't for your kind. The words were a slap in the face, a reminder of the forces aligned against us, their tone dripping with malice that made my stomach churn. But they also stoked a fire in my chest, rage surging through me, mingling with a steely determination that pushed back against the fear. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about stopping tyrants who thought they could crush a community with impunity, their arrogance a challenge I couldn't ignore. The next day, I attended the monthly HOA meeting, my heart pounding as I entered the community center, its fluorescent lights casting a harsh glow over the rows of chairs, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and nervous anticipation. Vivian sat at the board table, her jet black hair flawless, her expression icy as she surveyed the room, her presence commanding yet intimidating. Sylvia whispered beside her, their heads bent together in a conspiratorial huddle, their whispers a quiet hum beneath the murmur of the crowd. As I took a seat in the back, my palms sweaty, my notes clutched tightly in my hand. I waded through the mundane agenda items, reports on landscaping budgets, pool maintenance schedules, and a tedious debate over mailbox colors. My nerves fraying with each passing minute, my leg bouncing restlessly beneath the table. During the open forum, I stepped to the microphone, the metal cold against my fingers, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, the room falling silent as I spoke. "I'm Nathan Carter." I began, the words echoing in the silent room, my voice louder than I'd expected. 3 days ago, I received an eviction notice without prior warnings. I'd like to know what violations my family has committed. Eyes turned to me, a mix of curiosity and surprise, as the room held its breath, the tension palpable. Vivian's tone was dismissive, her words clipped, her eyes narrowing slightly as she spoke. "Individual matters aren't for public discussion. Submit an appeal for next month's meeting." I was ready, my research giving me the upper hand, my voice gaining strength as I pressed on. "According to your own bylaws, Article 7, Section 3, evictions require a public board vote with documented violations." "That hasn't happened," I said, my words ringing out, a challenge she couldn't ignore. Vivian's composure faltered for a moment, a flicker of unease crossing her face, her fingers tightening around her pen before Sylvia interjected, her voice smooth but laced with venom, her smile forced and brittle. She projected doctored photos of my house, showing fake peeling paint, overgrown weeds, and industrial equipment in our garage. None of it real, the images of blatant fabrication that made my blood boil. My heart pounded as I countered, pulling out my phone to display my own photos, pristine and recent, projecting them onto the screen for all to see, the room's collective gasp a small victory. The contrast was stark, our home immaculate, a testament to our care, the roses vibrant even in the projected image. "And while we're on transparency," I added, my voice rising with conviction, "what about the plan to sell our greenbelt to Monroe Properties, run by Ms. Monroe's nephew?" The room exploded with shouts, residents demanding answers about the greenbelt they cherished, their voices a cacophony of outrage, their faces flushed with anger and betrayal. Chaos ensued as Vivian banged her gavel, her face flushed with anger, her voice sharp as she adjourned the meeting with a declaration of disruptive behavior, her gavel slamming down with a force that echoed through the room. But the seed of resistance had been planted, the room buzzing with a newfound energy, a spark of defiance that hadn't been there before. Neighbors swapped stories of HOA bullying, fines for minor infractions like a child's chalk drawing on the sidewalk, threats over approved modifications like a backyard swing set, their voices rising with each shared grievance, exchanging numbers to form a coalition, their whispers a quiet rebellion that filled me with hope. As I gathered my things, my hands still trembling from the adrenaline, a nervous board member approached, his eyes darting nervously, his tie slightly askew. Later identified as Leo Grayson, the HOA accountant, he leaned in close, his voice a hurried whisper, his breath warm against my ear. "Meet me at Moonlight Diner tomorrow at 3 o'clock. There's more you need to know." Before I could respond, he hurried off, disappearing into the crowd, his footsteps quick and uneven on the tiled floor. When I got home, my blood ran cold. A giant red X was spray painted on our door, the paint still wet, its crimson hue a menacing declaration in the fading light, the harsh lines cutting through the pale wood like a scar. The vandalism felt like a physical blow, a declaration of war that made my stomach churn, my hands clenching into fists as I stared at the mark. I documented it, the camera's flash illuminating the garish mark, the red paint glistening under the light, then spent an hour scrubbing the paint off, the chemical scent of the cleaner stinging my nose, my arms aching as I worked, anger fueling my resolve. That night, I installed security cameras around the property, their tiny red lights blinking in the darkness, a precaution that would soon prove vital, their presence a small comfort in the face of escalating threats. The next morning, a letter from the HOA arrived, fining us $400 for the unapproved decoration they'd painted on our door. The irony so absurd it might have been laughable if it weren't so infuriating. The paper crinkling in my hands as I added it to my growing file of evidence, each document a piece of ammunition in the fight ahead. After dropping Liam at school, my heart heavy as I gave him strict instructions to stay with his teachers, my voice firm but gentle as I hugged him, his small arms clinging to me, I spent the morning researching legal options, poring over state laws on HOA governance, my desk cluttered with legal texts and notes. The laws generally favored associations, giving them broad authority to enforce rules, but there were clear boundaries they couldn't cross. Boundaries Vivian had obliterated with her actions, her disregard for due process a glaring violation. I found precedents of homeowners successfully challenging HOAs, cases where courts had ruled in favor of residents when associations overstepped their authority, each case a glimmer of hope that bolstered my resolve. I also researched Vivian's political connections, uncovering more details about her campaign donations. Thousands of dollars funneled to local council members, her influence a dark shadow over the city's governance. One politician, a councilman named Robert Hayes, had been a vocal supporter of development projects in the area, his name frequently tied to Vivian's in local news articles, their partnership a clear conflict of interest that made my stomach churn. At 3 o'clock, I arrived at Moonlight Diner, choosing a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance, my nerves on edge, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of danger. The diner was a quaint, retro spot, its red vinyl seats and checkered floor a throwback to simpler times, the air filled with the scent of frying bacon and fresh coffee. Leo arrived 10 minutes late, visibly jittery, his hands fidgeting as he ordered coffee he barely touched, his eyes darting to the door every few seconds, his nervousness infectious. I've been the HOA accountant for 7 years, he began, his voice low, almost a whisper, his words tumbling out in a rush. It was clean until Vivian took over. She's been siphoning HOA fees into a hidden account, buying properties through shell companies to flip for profit. He slid a USB drive across the table, his hand shaking, the plastic clinking softly against the Formica, the small device a Pandora's box of secrets. It's millions. The Greenbelt deal is their big score, luxury condos. They need your street for access. When I asked why he'd stayed silent, shame crossed his face, his eyes dropping to the table, his fingers tracing the rim of his untouched coffee cup. Vivian blackmailed me over a past error, a decimal point mistake years ago that benefited a client. She threatened to report me to the licensing board if I didn't help, said she'd ruin my career. His voice trembled as he continued, but now they're breaking laws, forgery, vandalism, intimidation. Someone will get hurt. Before leaving, he added a chilling warning, his voice barely above a whisper. Be careful. Marcus was fired from the police for excessive force. He's desperate, owing money to dangerous people, loan sharks who don't take kindly to unpaid debts, and Vivian's giving him one last chance to prove himself. Leo slipped out, leaving me with a treasure trove of incriminating financial records and a growing sense of the danger we faced. The USB drive burning a hole in my pocket as I left the diner, the weight of his words settling heavily on my shoulders. Later that day, I met Rachel Bennett at her law office downtown, the city skyline visible through her window, a stark contrast to the chaos of my world, the towering buildings a reminder of the power we were up against. A no-nonsense attorney in her 50s with a reputation for taking on powerful interests, she reviewed my evidence with a critical eye, her pen tapping rhythmically against her desk, her expression focused as she flipped through the documents. You've got a strong case, fraud, conspiracy, maybe racketeering, she said, her tone blunt, her words cutting through the fog of my anxiety. But they'll escalate. Keep documenting everything. Secure your home with more cameras and locks, and brace for worse. These types don't back down easily. They thrive on intimidation. Her words were a sobering reminder of the battle ahead, and I left her office with a renewed sense of urgency, the weight of her advice pressing down on me. The city's noise fading into the background as I drove home, my mind racing with plans. That evening, the HOA's escalation began in earnest, their tactics growing bolder, more brazen. Marcus and his team patrolled our street, their flashlight beams slicing through the darkness. A blatant show of intimidation that made my heart race, their footsteps heavy on the pavement outside our windows. When I ordered pizza for dinner, hoping for a moment of normalcy, a small comfort for Liam amidst the chaos, they followed the delivery driver to our door, harassing him with questions and snapping photos of his car, their voices loud and menacing, their presence a dark cloud over what should have been a simple meal. The driver, a young man barely out of his teens, looked shaken as he handed me the pizza, his hands trembling, his eyes wide with fear as he glanced over his shoulder at Marcus. Neighbors began avoiding us, their curtains drawn tight, fear evident in their averted gazes. The once friendly street, now a battlefield of silent tension. The psychological warfare took its toll. Liam came home from school in tears, his small face crumpled as he recounted how classmates had called us thieves, a rumor spread by the HOA's smear campaign, their lies seeping into every corner of our lives. My heart broke as I held him, his sobs muffled against my chest, guilt washing over me for exposing him to this nightmare, my arms tightening around him as I whispered reassurances I wasn't sure I believed. Determined to protect Liam, I arranged for him to stay with Ethan's family, packing his favorite dinosaur toy and a stack of books, whispering reassurances as his small hand clung to mine, his eyes wide and searching as I knelt to his level. "It's just for a little while, buddy," I said, forcing a smile as I kissed his forehead, the scent of his shampoo a painful reminder of the normalcy we'd lost, my throat tight with emotion. That night, Elise called with a breakthrough, her voice crackling through the secure line, a beacon of hope in the darkness. I showed my commander the evidence: threats against a military family, financial crimes, harassment of a dependent. "I've secured emergency leave. I'll be home tomorrow morning." Relief flooded through me, a wave of hope amidst the darkness, a lifeline I clung to as I prepared for her return. But it was fleeting. At midnight, I heard a crash outside and found our cameras smashed, their lenses shattered on the ground, the jagged pieces glinting in the moonlight. Hours later, our water and power were cut, plunging the house into darkness, the silence oppressive as I sat in the shadows, packing essentials by flashlight, the beam casting eerie shapes on the walls, my resolve hardening. They had no idea who they were up against. Elise arrived at dawn, her Navy commander uniform crisp, her presence a beacon of strength as she strode through the airport terminal, her gaze sharp despite the grueling flight, her posture unyielding even after hours of travel. Seeing her, her navy blue uniform a stark contrast to the chaos around us, I felt the weight on my shoulders lift, a sense of calm washing over me, her presence a reminder of the strength we shared. We embraced, her familiar scent of lavender and starch grounding me, a comforting anchor in the storm, and I whispered, "I missed you," my voice thick with emotion I hadn't realized I'd been holding, my hands trembling as I held her close. "I missed you too," she replied, her eyes locking onto mine with a fierce intensity, her hands steady on my shoulders. "Now, tell me everything." As we drove home, I updated her, my words tumbling out in a rush, my voice raw with the strain of the past few days, her questions precise, her mind already strategizing, her notebook filling with notes as we navigated the quiet streets. Neighbors peeked from windows, startled by her uniform, a symbol of authority that shifted the dynamic in an instant, their curious glances a small sign of the change to come. Inside our dark house, Elise assessed the damage with military precision, her boots echoing on the hardwood as she examined the sabotaged utilities, her movements methodical, her expression focused. "This is classic intimidation," she said, inspecting the electrical panel, her voice steady but laced with fury, her fingers tracing the tampered wires, her touch careful but deliberate. She spread our evidence across the dining table. Photos, documents, Leo's USB drive, analyzing each piece with laser focus, her brow furrowed in concentration, her pen scratching notes on a legal pad as she worked. "This isn't just an HOA issue," she concluded after an hour, her voice low and determined, her eyes meeting mine with a resolve that steadied me. "It's organized crime, racketeering, conspiracy. We'll hit them on multiple fronts." Her plan was meticulous. Restore utilities, secure legal protection, rally the community, and expose the corruption. Each step a calculated move in a larger strategy, her military training evident in every detail. Elise made 3 strategic calls, her voice commanding even through the phone, her tone leaving no room for argument. First, to the city utilities director, a fellow veteran she'd worked with during a past disaster relief effort, citing illegal disconnection laws with photographic proof, her argument airtight as she detailed the timeline. She spoke with authority, her words precise, providing evidence that left no room for doubt, her military bearing evident even over the phone. Within hours, crews arrived to restore our services. The hum of electricity a small victory as they apologized, admitting they'd been misled about our home being abandoned, their voices tinged with embarrassment as they worked. Her second call was to a local reporter, framing our story as systemic corruption, offering exclusive access to financial records and resident testimonies, her pitch compelling and urgent. The third was to the Federal Housing Authority, alleging discriminatory practices by the HOA, her argument a masterclass in legal precision, her voice steady as she laid out the case. Each call was a chess move, her tone professional yet commanding, elevating our personal fight into a public issue that couldn't be ignored, her strategy a testament to her years of leadership. We then launched a community outreach campaign, a groundswell of resistance that Elise orchestrated with the precision of a military operation, her approach methodical yet empathetic. She changed into civilian clothes, her navy blazer swapped for a soft sweater, to seem approachable, her demeanor warm as we visited neighbors door to door, the scent of freshly cut grass filling the air as we walked, the sun warm on our faces. She listened to their grievances, fines for approved structures like a child's treehouse, denied solar panels despite state laws, harassment over minor issues like a pet's bark. Her empathetic approach breaking through their fear, her eyes warm with understanding as she nodded, her notebook filling with their stories. "We're fighting for the community's integrity," she told each household, her sincerity forging alliances, her handshake firm and reassuring, her presence a quiet strength that inspired trust. A video call with Liam at Ethan's reassured him, Elise's voice gentle but firm as she spoke through the screen, her face softening as she saw his small, worried expression. "Bullies only have power if you let them, right?" Liam nodded, reciting their mantra, his small smile a flicker of hope that warmed my heart, though worry for him still lingered, a constant ache in my chest. That evening, the HOA issued a new ultimatum, property seizure in 48 hours, citing an obscure covenant clause Rachel had never seen, the letter's language cold and formal, its tone a clear threat. Elise added it to our evidence, noting its timing. Right after our community outreach, a desperate attempt to regain control, their fear of our growing resistance palpable. As night fell, Marcus's team erected fencing around our property, floodlights casting eerie shadows across the lawn, a blatant show of force that made my stomach churn, the harsh light illuminating the roses in a way that made them look ghostly, their beauty tainted by the scene. Elise watched through binoculars, a determined smile playing on her lips, her eyes glinting with resolve, her military training evident in her calm. "They always overplay their hand when they're confident," she said, her voice steady, her military experience guiding our next move. We spent the night planning Operation Exposure, a multi-front strategy to dismantle their power, Her battle plan spread across the table like a general preparing for war, her pen moving swiftly as she outlined each step. The next morning, we held a community meeting at Ethan's, the living room packed with neighbors, the air thick with tension and hope, the scent of coffee mingling with the nervous energy in the room. Elise presented the financial fraud and development plans, threatening everyone's property values. Her briefing clear and compelling, honed by years of military leadership, her voice steady as she spoke. She stood at the front, her posture confident, as she displayed Leo's records on a laptop, the numbers stark and damning, each figure a testament to Vivian's betrayal. Neighbors rallied behind us, their voices rising in support, a chorus of defiance that filled the room with a palpable energy, their faces set with determination. A newspaper expose, HOA tyranny, corruption in Pineview Meadows, hit the stands, detailing Vivian's shady past and the fencing around our home, fueling public outrage that spread like wildfire. The headline bold and accusing. Vivian and Sylvia held a press conference, dismissing the claims as lies, their voices shrill and defensive, their hands gesturing wildly as they spoke, but their words only validated the story, their credibility crumbling under the weight of the evidence, their desperation a sign of their unraveling. Elise filed complaints with the Federal Housing Authority, citing targeted harassment, adding federal pressure that loomed like a storm cloud over the HOA, her legal strategy relentless and precise. Residents began sharing their own stories, their voices growing louder, demanding an audit of the HOA's books, their fear giving way to anger, a collective awakening that Vivian couldn't suppress. That evening, Vivian offered a settlement. Stay if we sign an NDA and sold within 6 months at their appraised value. A transparent attempt to silence us. The offer a desperate ploy to salvage their plan. Elise countered by filing complaints with the district attorney and state consumer protection division. Her legal strategy a relentless assault, her determination unyielding. Leo later revealed Vivian's desperation, having overheard her ordering Marcus to fix this with promises of debt relief and a job at Monroe Properties, her voice sharp and commanding as she spoke. Marcus, drowning in debt to dangerous lenders, felt trapped, his desperation a ticking time bomb, his fear of his creditors a dark shadow over his actions. The night before the HOA's deadline, we prepared for the final showdown, the house quiet except for the sound of our preparations, the tension thick in the air. We secured valuables off-site, reinforced our doors with new locks, and set up a neighbor alert system, a phone tree that ensured support at a moment's notice, our allies ready to act. Marcus's team scouted our property, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness, clearly planning to change our locks at dawn, their movements methodical but tense. Elise remained calm, her voice a steady anchor, her presence a quiet strength. We've set the trap. Let them walk into it. I worked with Clara, uncovering proof of Vivian's forged board signatures, a final nail in her coffin. The document's a testament to Clara's years of quiet evidence gathering. Her determination a quiet fire that bolstered my own as we prepared for the confrontation that would decide our fate. The weight of the evidence a heavy but empowering burden in my hands. At 9 a.m., Vivian and Sylvia arrived to oversee the eviction. Marcus approached with new locks, hesitating as he saw me on the porch, sipping coffee. Neighbors casually gathered as witnesses. Beautiful day for some illegal activity, isn't it? I called out, my voice steady, a hint of defiance in my tone. Vivian sneered, her eyes narrowing, her voice dripping with contempt. This property is being reclaimed for violations. Leave now, or we'll remove you. I glanced at my watch, a small smile forming, a quiet confidence settling over me. Right on cue, 3 vehicles pulled up, Elise in her uniform, a reporter, and a Federal Housing Authority attorney. What followed was a masterclass in confrontation, a moment where every piece of our strategy fell into place. As cameras recorded, Vivian ordered Marcus to proceed, her voice sharp, her hands gesturing with authority. Elise stepped forward, presenting an injunction and evidence of fraud, her uniform a symbol of unyielding authority. Ms. Sterling, "You're being recorded attempting an illegal eviction," she said, her voice commanding, resonating with the weight of her naval experience. "We have proof of forgery, fund misappropriation, and real estate fraud." Vivian's rage erupted, her face contorting with fury. "I'll crush you with my connections." Sylvia tried to flee, her heels clicking on the pavement, but neighbors blocked her, Clara leading the charge, her frail frame belying the fire in her eyes. In a fatal misstep, Vivian shouted at Marcus to destroy their evidence. Her words caught on camera, a damning admission that echoed through the crowd. The police, called by Vivian to assist, instead began investigating her, their radios crackling as they took statements. The scene a whirlwind of justice unfolding. "You orchestrated this." Vivian spat at Elise, her voice a venomous hiss, her hands clenched into fists. Elise nodded calmly, her expression unyielding. "In the Navy, we call it controlled escalation. You've run out of moves." The aftermath was swift, a cascade of consequences that dismantled the HOA's corrupt regime. At an emergency HOA meeting, the community set her pack to the brim. Elise presented the evidence. $250,000 in misappropriated funds, forged documents, and targeted harassment. Her presentation a clear, compelling narrative that left no room for doubt. Vivian's past fraud convictions, uncovered by Clara through her academic connections, sealed her fate, the revelation drawing gasps from the crowd, their anger a palpable force. The vote to remove Vivian and Sylvia was unanimous, a cathartic moment for residents who'd lived in fear for years, their cheers a release of years of pent-up frustration. Marcus turned state's evidence, exposing the scheme's depth, his testimony a key to unlocking the full extent of the corruption, while Leo's records confirmed the fraud, his quiet documentation a cornerstone of our victory. The community restructured the HOA, with Ethan elected as president and Clara as advisor, their leadership a breath of fresh air. They established a transparency committee, ensuring all financial records and board decisions were accessible to every homeowner, a safeguard against future abuse. The Greenbelt was designated a protected park, its rolling hills and ancient oaks preserved in perpetuity, a victory for collective action that felt like a reclaiming of our home. Vivian was fined and banned from serving on any HOA board in the state, a significant blow to her power, while Sylvia lost her real estate license, her career in tatters. Marcus received probation in exchange for his cooperation, his role in the scheme a cautionary tale of desperation and coercion. Our home, our community, was safe, the storm finally passing to reveal a brighter horizon. 6 months later, Pineview Meadows had transformed into a place of unity and healing. Monthly HOA meetings, once dreaded affairs marked by Vivian's arbitrary rulings, became collaborative gatherings where residents shared ideas for genuine improvements. New playground equipment for the park, a community garden, and even a book club that met in the Greenbelt on sunny afternoons. The Greenbelt itself, now officially protected by new bylaws requiring a supermajority vote to alter, stood as a cherished preserve, its trails winding through wildflowers and ancient oaks, a daily reminder of what we'd fought for. I channeled my experience into a book, Fortress, A Family's Fight Against HOA Tyranny, which became a local bestseller, its pages filled with the raw emotion and hard-won lessons of our battle. The book gained national attention when similar HOA scandals emerged across the country, sparking investigations into overreach and corruption, its words a rallying cry for homeowners everywhere. It was featured on news programs and podcasts, and a national cable network produced a special report inspired by our story, highlighting the vulnerability of homeowners to corrupt leadership, our fight a beacon of hope for others. Elise received a promotion and a commendation from her commanding officers, who praised her tactical thinking in non-combat situations as a mark of exceptional leadership. Her actions inspired a military support initiative to better protect service members' families from predatory practices while they were deployed, a legacy that extended far beyond our neighborhood. We hosted a community festival to celebrate our victory, the Greenbelt filled with laughter, music, and the scent of grilled food, an event that has since become an annual tradition in Pineview Meadows, strengthening the bonds between neighbors who once lived in isolation and fear. What had been a collection of households too scared to challenge authority transformed into a tight-knit community where people looked out for one another, their smiles a testament to the power of unity. This journey taught us profound lessons about the strength found in solidarity and the courage it takes to stand against injustice, no matter how powerful the opponent. We learned that corruption thrives in shadows and silence, but it cannot withstand the light of truth and the collective voice of a community united. When Elise received new deployment orders, our family faced the separation with a renewed perspective, the scars of our battle a reminder of our resilience. One evening, as we sat on the porch, the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Liam looked up at Elise, his voice small but steady. "Are we going to have to leave our house?" Elise smiled, kneeling to meet his eyes, her hand gentle on his cheek. "Never, sweetheart. A commander never abandons her ship, and this is our harbor." Watching them embrace, the roses blooming vibrantly behind them, I reflected on how a nightmare had forged something stronger, not just for our family, but for an entire community. What's the most unjust situation you've faced, and how did you find the courage to fight back? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you discovered your own strength, and I know our community would too. At Daily Narrated Stories, we're dedicated to bringing you tales like these, stories that inspire and uplift, showing that even in the darkest moments, hope and resilience can light the way. We're on a mission to reach 1,000 subscribers so we can continue sharing these life-changing narratives. Please subscribe now, leave your thoughts in the comments, and join our growing family before this chance slips away. Together, let's stand against injustice, one powerful story at a time.